Hi, welcome to the Be the Cake podcast with your host, me, Liz Campbell. And it's been a few weeks, probably more than a few weeks. We've had the usual Christmas crazy around here and all the rest of it. And I basically am back today, spur of the moment actually, because of the work I have been doing as part of the development of this new course I'm putting together, which I will be announcing to the world when it's finished. But essentially, as a part of the process of developing any of my work, I am usually led to actually put myself through it. And this course in particular is going to be what I'm going to call a flagship moment for Dynamic Intention, because of the fact that it really condenses everything that my work's about into one very solid, structured process, in actual fact, to help you to get really properly aligned with your truth, clear out all the conditioning, and really help you to actually not only get clear on why you're here, what it is that you actually really want, but also it's going to help you manifest it in a way that's actually fully aligned for you. And it's about your spiritual gifts and but so much more than that. Like I said on that news to follow, this particular thing that I want to talk about today it's an interesting one, because I've known ever since I started doing this work, basically ever since I started working with energy, that one of the big subjects I'm here to talk about is money, the other one is creativity, but also, like, the third part of all of this is sexuality. As some of you may or may not know, I used to be a cam girl. It's not something I try to hide about myself, even though at one point when I first started diving into the world of energy work, which I've been guided towards actually when I was still camming, and it was really coming through loud and clear that this was a new direction I needed to take, and it was time to leave the past behind. I was actually told by my first spiritual coach, quote unquote, that I should avoid unpacking my suitcase, because I was at the time in the process of writing a book. And I, at that point, had actually already gotten 110,000 words deep into it. And this is something that I'm considering picking up again quite a few years later, although I can't actually remember everything I wrote. So I'm having to reread it, which is kind of an interesting one. And there's editing to do and so on and so forth. But essentially, one of the things that I have really realised, and it's really hit home to me, is how deeply conditioned we as women. And, I'm going to say this for any man who happens to be listening to this too, because, the reaches of patriarchy go far and wide and deep. And I've already done one episode covering this to a certain extent, but this is diving in even deeper, more layers, etc., etc. Not doing any energy work today, but I just want to talk about the fact that it is just so important for every woman on this planet who has even an inkling or an iota of a spark that there's more that they want to life, that they actually take full ownership of their financial, sexual, and creative power. Now, this is a massive subject, okay? Most of the problems that we are seeing in the world at the moment are down to the fact that women in particular have run away from and hidden from these things. Now, there's a lot of stuff out there in what I'm going to call the disembodied spiritual community about money being evil and so on and so forth. And I'm seeing it for what it is now, as all being a very elaborate ruse that we have co-created, made ourselves available for various different things. That essentially this ruse is playing into the hands of any agenda you can think of, which involves transhumanism, basically the takeover of AI, various other gnarly plots, okay, various other gnarly plots that people who claim to be woke and spiritual keep picking up on, but at the same time they're still not wanting to own their financial power, their sexual power, their creative power. So there's this division thing going on. The division, the more that people feed the division and split themselves from their true financial power, creative power, sexual power, and we actually all have it. Even if you're the most poor person in the world, you have the ability to grasp these things with both hands from deep inside of you, pull them out and actually start working with them, okay? So much of my work is about this. You know, you are not a victim of circumstance. You're not a victim, full stop. You may have undergone horrible, horrible things in your life. We all have. I've had my fair share. But the important point is that rather than seeing yourself as a victim, you take the stance of survivor and you take what you have been through and you use it as grist for the mill of propelling yourself forwards and actually really owning your power and actually extracting the power from the trauma that you're holding on to and actually repurposing it so that it serves truth, beauty and love and your abundance. Okay, this is an alchemical process essentially of transmuting lack into abundance, transmuting pain into power, so on and so forth. And I'm talking about this today because one of the things that I see in amongst all the spiritual bypassing that's out there is a demonization of what people like to refer to very sniffily as spiritual materialism. And in actual fact, it's so important that you stop separating the spiritual from the material. They are made of the same stuff. Okay. What you see going on out there in the world, like all of the, you know, I'm going to say like the different timelines, the timelines and plot twists, you could say, of, you know, what I'm going to call sort of slave matrices and like promotion of AI as taking over creative jobs and so on and so forth. All of this is rooted in, and people aren't going to like me saying this, but I need to say it anyway. It's rooted in those of us who are creative, those of us who have a sense of our magic, also holding ourselves apart from being creative and using our magic, and holding ourselves apart from owning the value of that, charging accordingly for it, and so on and so forth. Okay, what happens when people are scared of dealing with money? They create, and the answer to this is they create realities where they're not going to have to. All of this great reset stuff, all of the other things I see being touted as being like possibilities that we're heading towards in our future are being fueled by our collective fear of money, of being wealthy, of using our wealth wisely, of actually taking charge of our financial power with both hands and channeling it into stuff that it is actually representative of what we actually desire, of the way that we actually want to live. This whole thing with AI plagiarizing creatives, like how many creatives do I see in the world? God, I've lost count now. The amount of creatives I see in the world who are in this state of incoherence with themselves, where on the one hand they really want to be rich, on the other hand they're terrified of charging what their work is actually worth. They're not valuing themselves. They're coming from foundations that are rooted in self-disillusionment, is what I'm going to say, in terms of they're not understanding who they truly are, what their true power is, and so on and so forth. So there's an automatic split going on in the foundations, and basically where there are cracks in the foundations and people are coming from a space of not good enough, not worthy, yada yada yada, at a deep unconscious level, what that then creates is an amplification on the surface where we are seeing human contribution and art and so on and so forth being devalued, and these agendas where robots get to take over and technology is better than us and so on and so forth. And none of that would be happening if we were actually taking charge of our financial power in the first place and actually deciding that whatever unconscious shit that we've got going on, that we're going to dive in and we're going to fucking change that so that we can change the external reality. It's all interlinked. Everything is connected. There is nothing that's going on in the world, or any of the many worlds that I look at from the perspective of quantum theory, that you could experience that are not rooted in a deep unconscious embodied belief that is supporting that external reality. Okay, the simple fact of the matter is, when people talk about thoughts create things, not essentially what happens is your programming and your unconscious energy creates your thoughts and your emotional responses to those thoughts, which creates the things. It's like having a big movie projector, basically, and the unconscious is like the film that's on the reel behind the projector that's got the light shining through it, and what you see on the outside is what's running deep down inside that you can't see. And when you do this work properly, things can shift so fucking fast, it'll make your head spin. But the simple fact of the matter is that whilst you stay in a sense of separation, them and us, it's being done to me, I'm a victim of this, so on and so forth, you know, and you're skimming the surface when it comes to how you're creating, essentially, and you are running away from looking at your deep fears of being wealthy, of what that might mean, and so on and so forth, nothing fucking changes. And I feel like, you know, me coming out and saying this today, there's going to be a lot more from me on subjects like this, but there's been a huge amount of what I'm going to call sort of spiritual posturing that's made around money's not important and this, that and the other and yada yada yada, and all spiritual materialism is of the devil and all this stuff, and it's just religion repackaged. A lot of the new age stuff that you see, and it's up to you to pick your way through and be discerning, is literally just religion repackaged and still there to try and control you and stop you from claiming your power. But, you know, you dive a bit deeper and you realise the whole reason why you're experiencing this is because you were fucking terrified of your own power in the first place. So it's, you know, when it comes down to it, it's about actually understanding how truly powerful you are and how important it is to actually fully own that power, and what fully owning that power actually entails for you personally. Because everyone's got their own shit around this, depending on how you were brought up, depending on your ancestral stuff. Because, you know, your DNA has a lot to do with this too. Stuff that's inherited epigenetic shit, basically, where you're labouring under programs that were first installed with your ancestors and your ancestors' ancestors kind of thing. And you're still running them in the background and they're still running the fucking show. This is, you know, this is... when I'm working with people, this is what I'm diving into and actually clearing up effectively. And I'll tell you right now, when you properly start to clear this stuff up, you have this level of clarity that comes across basically and up from the depths of like, oh my God, how much was I self-sabotaging before? How much is it important for me to talk about this? You get on message with yourself and you understand what it is that you need to talk about, as I am here now. You know, money is something I've talked about frequently before, not so much on this podcast, but certainly on my YouTube channel. You know, and I would still say now, the videos I do about money and the money healings are the most popular things on there. And I know that it's not just because there's a need for it. I know it's because it's an important subject for me to talk about. So I'm going to keep on fucking talking about it, and I will keep on doing work around this stuff and throwing it out into the world, regardless of what anyone might think of it, you know, essentially. But, yeah, if I could just hammer this one message home for you today, it doesn't matter whether you're male or female, actually. It's so important, as like, if you are in any way spiritually inclined, and this is really talking at cross purposes to myself, because in actual fact everything is spiritual in nature. Nothing can be unspiritual in nature because of the very nature of existence and the all in all and all the rest of it. But the bottom line is, if you have an inclination towards wanting to incorporate your sense of spirituality more into your physical existence, it's important for you to understand that money is not something you can run away from and expect to create the future on a collective level that you actually want for us all. Money gets to roll into it. Sexuality gets to roll into it. Creativity gets to roll into it. All of these subjects, all of the subjects that were verboten by the church and various different organised religions throughout the ages, because of the fact that the church wanted to keep people in a place. I say the church and various, like pretty much all the world religions, wanted to keep people in a place of separation from their power. Okay. If someone is disconnected from their financial power, their sexual power and their creative power, they are automatically disconnected from the root and the sacral chakras, as well as the power part is the solar plexus. So you're not fully in your body properly, and when you're not fully in your body properly, you can't be fucking effective properly. You can't be physically effective, which means you can't affect the changes you've come here to affect, which means that doing stuff, you can do all of the actions, but it's like pissing into the wind, basically. So, come back to this, like, the real basics. You want me to boil it down, it's the lower chakra stuff that you need to fucking deal with. Okay. And when we're talking about this also affects your immune system. It affects your fertility and your reproductive abilities, the whole fucking 9 yards. It all ties together. None of it is separate. So I'm leaving you with this for now. I will be back with more, possibly following on from this. We're going to see what wants to come out next, but I needed to talk about this today, and I needed to basically do my best to plant seeds of understanding amongst those of you who are listening to this. And those of you listening to this at whatever point of time you're listening to it, you are the ones who are ready to hear this, even if on a surface / wounded ego level it might be uncomfortable and you might feel like you're not ready. If you're parked in front of this, believe me, it's what your soul was wanting you to hear. So take heed. Okay. And there might be bits you don't fully resonate with. Check in on those. I'm not saying blindly follow everything I say, but at the end of the day, you were brought here for a reason. Pay attention. I'm just the messenger. Right, I'm sending you all lots of love. I'm going to leave it there for now. I'll be back next week with more. Don't worry, we are back on the Be the Cake train. But yes, for today, financial, sexual, creative power. Own it. If you need help with owning it, then there are a range of products that I sell and a range of things that I offer that you can check out to see if I might be the right person for you to work out on with these subjects. Okay, but whatever you do, don't just fucking ignore it and pretend that it doesn't matter. Mwah! Love to all of you. Bye for now.